Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. In this video, we are interviewing Betty Horn. She is one of my regular commenters, and just to clarify any confusion, this is not the same small horn mentioned in the scriptures. She's not the Antichrist. I clarified that, so we're good to go. Don't need to worry about that. If anybody else, if you want to come on here just like her, I'm open to talking to anybody. Just email me at my.christian.homestead@gmail.com. It's also under the About tab on my channel page, so you can contact me. We can have a conversation, and just like this one. So welcome, Betty Horn. Now, you said one time that you were in the Tabernacle Choir, right?
I made the Tabernacle Choir. I never got to sing with them because my younger son died and I moved back home to Florida.
Okay. Well, that's too bad.
That was back in, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just said that's too bad.
Yeah, it was quite a feat. It was a 2-year process to go through to audition for the choir.
Yeah, I don't know where I saw it before, but I maybe it was like one of those like in between general conference sessions, like the World News Report or whatever it's called. I thought I remembered them talking about just like how like stringent the requirements are. Like, yes. What all did you have to do? Like, you have to like have like a real good understanding, obviously, of music, right? But like, what do you have to do to join?
Well, first of all, you have to go through your bishop, and your bishop will send in to the choir basically kind of like a recommend.
Yeah.
And then they send a thing back to your bishop, and the bishop has to go to the stake president, and then the stake president goes back to the choir and says this is okay. And then and mind you, any step of the way you can be eliminated.
Yeah.
And so anyway, then after that they send you a packet. And back then you had to record it. I don't know how they do the recordings now, but you had to send in a tape with the things. It was like 5 pages, and it was different exercises, vocal exercises that you did. And then you had to sing, you had a choice of 3 hymns. And my choice was, I can't remember what it was. But anyway, you had to sing it a cappella, and you had to play the first note, sing the song, sing the first verse of the song, and then you had to play the last note, so they know that if you've dropped key or not.
Yeah. Okay.
And so all this had to be on the tape, and then you send it in and you wait, and then they send you a letter that says you either didn't pass, or that you they want you to come in for an in-person what they call a it's a music test. It's 2.5 hours long, and it's a listening test, and there's 5 parts to it, and you have to be able to sight read. You have to be able to tell the difference between, like, they'll play something and you'll look at the music that's in front of you, and you have to say if it's the same or different than what was being played. Anyway,
I would immediately fail. I cannot read music. I cannot tell the difference between, I don't know if I'm note blind or whatever you call it, or note deaf, but like I cannot tell, so I could never do this. But now wait, now at this time, what year was it?
It was 1989 when I got the letter that I made it. So it was, no, it was 1990. It was 1987 when I started the process. And it was, it was 1989. It was 1989 that I got the letter.
And at the time you were living in Utah?
Yes, I was. I was living in West Valley, in fact. Okay. And so I went ahead and I went in for well, actually I missed the audition, but it was for a good reason. I mean, for the test, the original test, it was for a good reason. I had to come home for my father's funeral. And so they excused me on that, and they let me schedule a later date, which I did. And the girls I worked with, I worked at Deseret Mutual at the time, which is the church insurance company.
Yeah.
And the girls I worked with thought I was kind of arrogant because I said I had perfect pitch. And it's like, nah, that's not right. And I had to explain to them that perfect pitch doesn't mean you sing perfectly. It means you hear perfectly. So you can hear how far off you're singing. It doesn't mean that you're good. It just means you can hear the difference.
Yeah.
And so anyway, after that test, I guess my lowest score was like a 92%. And I had 3 100%, and on the last, I think I had 3 100%, 196 and 192.
Okay.
And I got the school. They actually sent it over to me via intercompany mail. So they just sent over from the church office to me at work. And so I was looking through them, and everybody was looking over my shoulders, and I hear somebody say, "Wow, she really can sing."
You got vindicated, so that must have been a pretty good feeling.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And so and then they had, after all that, they schedule you. This is if you have an opening in your voice range. And I wanted to be a second soprano because I thought that's what my voice range was. And so there was an opening in that voice range. And so they called me in for an in-person audition. Now, one thing about me is I do auditions perfectly. The follow through isn't always great, but the audition itself, I am excellent. If I have any claim to fame, it's like I can audition. And so I went for the in-person audition with Donald Ripplinger and Gerald Otley. And Gerald Otley was the conductor of the choir at that time, and Donald Ripplinger was one of the organists. And so I had an audition with them in person, and that went excellent. And at the end of that, they send you one of 3 letters. One of the letters is, "Sorry, try again." The second letter is, "You made it, report to such and such a place at such and such a time." And the third letter is the one I got, which was, "You made it, but we want you as a first alto and not a second soprano, and there are no openings in the first alto right now, so you're on the waiting list." And
so they have they have backups then, so that they always, okay.
And so I ended up as number 1 on the waiting list when my son died.
Oh.
And so I never got to sing with them, but basically I made it. The one thing too about that is you only have 2 chances. If you audition once and you don't make it, you only have 1 more chance to audition. And if you don't make it, you don't have any more chances. And there was a man in my ward that swore up and down that I would not make it. "You're never going to make it. You're not going to make it. You're going to." And I'm thinking to myself, you just watch me. Because he said you had to be a professional musician and you had to take voice lessons, and which I didn't do any of that at the time. And you had to have a music degree and da-da-da-da-da. It's like, but I knew music my whole life. I've done music my whole life. Music isn't something I do, it's something I am. Anyway, so I'm thinking to myself, just watch me.
Yeah, well, geez, I mean, how's that for moral support? Like whenever I know somebody, like despite what I think of their background or their talents, like I'm always going to support them. So it's like,
well, I learned
not
later.
Cool.
Yeah, I learned later that he had auditioned for the choir and flunked out.
Oh.
And that's why he was saying that. I guess he was so envious. I don't know. I don't know what to do with it.
It could be. Well, let me ask you this. So music, right? Because I'm trying to like kind of get a lineup of like different people. I want to talk to people both inside the church, outside the church, and there's a couple LDS musicians that I've reached out to. I haven't heard back yet from them. I don't know if I ever will, but I'm curious about music, right? Because, well, okay, well, first of all, do you have a favorite hymn?
I do.
Okay, what is it?
It's let me look it up. Forgive my strokes kind of prohibit me from remembering certain things,
Oh,
but
yeah,
I can look
fine.
it up really fast because I know what it is. The thing is it came out in the 1985 hymn book. It was a new hymn at that time, and I remember when I first heard it. I remember thinking, well, when I first learned it, we learned it in Relief Society, and I literally heard angels singing with us. And so it became one of those, I hope I can find it. I'll remember it eventually. Probably in
Okay.
the middle of this, I'm going to pop up and say, that's what it was.
Well, so
But
now with music, why do you have any opinion about why music is important and special when it comes to church?
uh, I think, in fact, that's a talk that I was given that I never got a chance to give because the bishop that asked me to do it asked me to to give a talk about the importance of music in worship. And the very next week it was shut down because of COVID.
Oh,
So I never got to give that talk. However, music is a prayer unto God.
yeah.
Number one, music is a prayer unto God. Number two, when you sing, you are literally singing with angels, just like that experience that I had. You are literally singing with angels. And that, it reminds me of when the prophet said this last conference that we can learn to part the veil and converse with angels. What do you think we're doing when we're singing our hymns? And my least favorite calling in all of church was music conducting because everybody wanted to hear me sing and nobody would sing. And it was so frustrating to me because I wasn't up there to sing a solo every Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted people to experience what I experience when I sing, because music is the way I hear the Holy Ghost. It really is. Music touches me in ways that nothing else can. And it is more than just singing the words and hearing the melody and oh, this is nice and oh, that's nice. To me, it's an entire experience of being immersed with the Holy Ghost. And I
Mm-hmm.
think everybody can have that if they just open their mouths and sing.
Yeah. Do you think
And
that with, oh, go ahead.
nobody cares what you sound like. They're too busy worrying about what they sound like to
Yeah.
think about what you're sounding like.
Yeah. Do you think that there's going to be any special music or anything that accompanies the second coming? Like I
Oh
know
yeah.
in DNC, like it actually talks about, I don't know if it's talking about like a literal song, but you think that there'll be music that
I think that there will definitely be a choir of angels singing his announcement.
Mhm.
He's here. Look at what happened when Christ was born on earth. What was the people who announced it? It was a choir of angels singing glory to God.
Yeah.
Why would it be different with the second coming?
Yeah. Well, and one thing that kind of strikes me about music, specifically when it comes to like choirs or symphonies or whatever, when you have a lot of people doing it, it's like you have everybody coming together with their uniqueness, whether it's a different instrument or a different voice. And you kind of get a sense of Zion, I think, through music, because you all have to be in harmony, right, in order for the piece to sound the way it's supposed to sound. So I
Yes.
think that there's like kind of a Zion theme when it comes to sacred music.
Yes, I have a friend who actually conducted the music in my ward in St. Cloud when I lived up there a couple of years ago. And he sang with the choir for 20 years. And he used to talk about how there's two kinds of voices. There's the kind of voice that's like a flute, and there's a kind of voice that's like a trumpet. And he was talking about his is kind of like a flute, that his, it's kind of light and so on. And me, I'm definitely a trumpet. I've got a huge voice. In fact, there was one time I sang at a ward Christmas program, and there was a 12-piece choir that's, 12-person choir that sang behind me. And then there was a 5-piece orchestra, and then there was me. And I literally, if you know anything at all about theater, there are spots on the stage that are known as dead spots, where sound just doesn't seem to carry. And I was standing in the dead spot, and they literally took my microphone and gave it to the choir because they couldn't hear the choir. All they could hear was me.
Wow, you're definitely a trumpet then.
Yeah, I have a big voice. In fact, when I sing, I have to sing standing back from the microphone and turn the microphone away because I get feedback. So I have to be real careful because I have a huge voice.
Speaking about trumpets, that's like another symbol that I've talked about on the program, both with like the Feast of Trumpets. I went over a whole thing about Rosh Hashanah, and then I've also talked about the trumpet falling from the angel Moroni in 2020. Do you have any thoughts about that, or do you remember when that happened?
I do, and I remember thinking, this is it. This is the beginning. I don't know, I didn't know how long things are going to take before it starts falling apart. I didn't know what was going to happen, but this was the beginning. This was the mark. This was the dividing line between preparation and action. This was preparation time is over. You've got to now we've got to live with what we have, learn to share what we have. I remember reading an article, and I think it was by President Grant, and he was talking about how the importance of food storage. It wasn't for us to hoard. It wasn't for us to say, okay, we got it made. You didn't do it. It's your fault. You deal with it. That's not what the purpose was. The purpose was that you cannot, and this was his words, you cannot feed people from empty shelves. Now that tells me I need to be feeding people. That doesn't tell me I need to be hoarding it and hoping that it'll last through till the way to make it last is to share it. Just like the widows, the cruse of oil and the measure of wheat. When she made that last cake and gave it to the prophet, and then her food never ceased. When the pandemic started, there was very few people in my ward at the time that was feeding the missionaries. And we didn't have a whole lot of money, but I told them, I said, listen, I'll feed them every day. I have food storage. I'll feed them every day if I have to. Because, I don't want to take away the blessings of other people, in their service. However, I had the means. And so it's like, I was not going to let those missionaries go hungry.
Yeah. Now, wait, where are you at right now? I know that you're in the Eastern time zone. Right. Where's your location?
Right now I'm in Bradenton, Florida, which is just north of Sarasota, just south of Tampa.
Oh, that's right. I remember you putting a comment about that. I knew that.
Yeah. And at that time I had been in Aurora, which is just outside of Denver.
Okay. Yeah.
When the pandemic just started.
Yeah. And, I think there's a spiritual lesson there because like when I was in the Army, right? When I was in basic training, there was one night I came downstairs because it was my turn to do a shift with the drill sergeant. There were a few of us, and I had forgotten my Camelback. and he got upset at me because like it's, you know, you always have to have the right uniform and be in the right place at the right time. Once I got my Camelback and came back downstairs, he was like, Davies, do you know the difference between level 1 skills and level 2 skills? And I didn't know because I was still just learning. But he went on to explain that level 1 skills, and I don't know if this is probably throughout the military, but at least in the Army, level 1 skills is when you're a junior soldier and all you need to do is just focus on yourself, make sure that you're in the right place, the right time with the right equipment, and that you're squared away. You just focus on yourself. Then once you've mastered those skills, you're able to go on and start looking over, you know, maybe like a squad or you know, platoon maybe. And you know, and then after that, you go on up and then you start looking at like the whole organization. So like you kind of like there's you know, it's like a steps that you take and you get higher and higher. So just like what you're saying, it's something that we all need to do, whether it's food storage, like we need to get yourself squared away. And then once you do that, you'll be able to help others. Like in your case, you were able to do that for the missionaries, and but like in all aspects of our lives.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, dear. I'm just agreeing with you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's just pretty much it. Now, let's see. Now with General Conference, did you notice any themes yourself, or what kind of things did you pull out of conference that you can share with everybody?
One of the things that I noticed that I don't know if it was obvious to anybody or not, but every single one of the 15 first, you know, the Quorum of the 12 and the First Presidency, every single one of us spoke to us. In this conference, every single one of them spoke to us.
Oh,
And
yeah, I don't think I noticed that, but
I think that was significant, you know, and they're all trying to tell us something. And personally, again, this is my own personal opinion, but I don't have to look hard to see the messages that they're giving. It's real easy for me to pick out, that's
Mhm.
it, that's it, that's it, that's what they're saying, that's what they're saying.
Yeah,
But I guess a lot of people just, they gloss over it. It's like they treat it like sacrament meeting and they fall asleep in the middle of it, and whatever else, you know. And
yeah.
it's one of those things, you get out of it what you put into it. Now, having worked at Deseret Mutual,
Hmm.
I actually worked with a group of men whose assignment it was to go over General Conference talks and edit them and clarify them, make sure all the footnotes were there, all the references were there, and then return it back to the people who were giving the talks so that they could perfect their projection, you
Yeah.
know. But there's a lot that goes into these. I mean, and this was back in 1988 when I first started working at Deseret Mutual. And there's a lot that goes into these talks that people don't even stop and think about, because they think about, oh, I was given a talk in sacrament meeting. My talk, the bishop just called me, or the counselor just called me Monday, and I'm supposed to have this talk on, you know. These people get their assignment for General Conference 6 months before. They get it at the end of the past, you know, this past conference. The people who are going to be speaking have already gotten their assignments for this
Yeah.
next conference. And there's a lot of things that go into it and a lot of details. And perhaps that's one of, and I have kind of an editor's mind anyway. So I'm able to pick out certain things and certain ideas and certain, I don't know that there is necessarily a general theme through this last one, except to say that I think they're trying to get us to be a Zion people.
Mhm.
They're trying to get us off of the political right, left, whatever. They're trying to get us off of the science versus pseudoscience things, all the things that are the CRT, all the things that are meant to divide us.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'm going to be covering in my talk, because like Brother Palmer says, there's prosperity, posterity, and what's the other thing? Anyway, there's like three things, and they're all temporal things. They're all, we're going to have, and yet they're not, because we're going to have family, we're going to have property, and we're going to have means, to live, and so on. But my talk is going to be more like the spiritual end of the blessings, the hope, and the hope and the peace. And the bottom line is Jesus Christ himself. That is the biggest blessing of all of the gospel, is Jesus Christ himself.
Yeah.
And when we start to see that that's what it's all about, and we want to be like him, we will become Zion people. When we stop being selfish and think and being self-righteous, I did what I was supposed to do, you got to do what you're supposed to do. Yes, people are responsible for taking care of themselves. However, we aren't to look down on them and say, you didn't do it, so tough luck. Well, you didn't do it, and I can't help in the ways you want me to help, but I can at least do this. I had a situation with a family member right now who basically rejected everything I had to offer. And there's going to come a time when that family member is going to come to me and say, help. And I'm going to explain, you put me in an impossible situation. I cannot help you in the way that you want me to help. However, I can give you this. You're going to have to go home and cook it yourself. I can't cook it for you. And if you want it, you have to come to me. I can't take it to you.
Yeah. It's the parable of the 10 virgins. It's the parable of the 10 virgins.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's played out time and time again.
Yeah. Okay, so what is your sense of like how long or how far out we are from the second coming, however you want to define that, whether it's like if adam-ondi-ahman hasn't happened yet, when do you think that might happen, or the official second coming to the world? Like what are your thoughts on that?
Again, this is gospel according to Betty. I would not be surprised if adam-ondi-ahman, I would be surprised if it's already happened, because there are certain promises given to certain people that have not occurred yet. One of which is that you get to go. You get to attend in whatever way, whether it be via Zoom or of course nobody's going to talk about it, but there's just a sense that it has not happened yet. I don't believe that's happened yet. However, I do believe that within 2 years. That's, again, my opinion on adam-ondi-ahman.
When I was talking to Brother Guerrero in my last interview, I had the thought of like, because I feel like there's a lot you can learn about adam-ondi-ahman, but the details are also kind of scarce at the same time. And one idea that's brought up by Bruce R. McConkie is that it could be the type of thing where it's several sessions, right? And so I wonder, is it gonna, if it is several sessions, is it gonna be within days of each other, or could it be spread out across years? Like maybe there'll be one session that kind of corresponds to one general conference and something like that. So I wonder if, I tend not to think so. I think it'd probably be within days of each other, but I wonder if like maybe the initial sessions have maybe happened already with the general authorities, or I don't know. There's different things to think about, but what else were you going to say about like, the official second coming? It sounded like you were about to go there.
Right. The reason I don't think adam-ondi-ahman has occurred yet, because this is going to happen from the ground up. It's going to be where the deacons give up. They don't give up. You know, they forward their
report.
Yeah, to the priest, to the teachers. The teacher will report to the priest. The priest will report to the elders. The elders will report to the bishop. The bishop will report to the president. The stake president will report to the area. It's going to be from the ground up. It's not going to be from the top down. So if it has happened, then that means those keys will have been transferred from the bottom up, not from the top down, because they're all going back to Adam. Mm-hmm. So yeah. To me, that tells me that it may be several days, as you said, like a general conference, perhaps like even a week-long conference, because who knows how long it's going to take to get every deacon to report and every teacher to report and every elder to report and every state president to report and so on. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to take some time, but I don't believe that has happened yet. As far as the second coming to all the world, there's a couple other times that the Lord's going to come after adam-ondi-ahman and before he presents himself to the world. A lot of people, myself included, used to believe, or still believe, that when he puts his foot on the Mount Olivet and splits the mountain, that's his second coming. It's not. That's his coming to the Jews. Yeah, and that's where the Jews will have recognition. In scriptures, it is my understanding that it will be like 7 years after that the Jews will be burying. There's going to be so much death and so much destruction in the world that it's going to take them 7 years to bury all these people. And so it's going to be sometime between the Mount of Olivet event and the 7 years after that. This is, again, my opinion. So I'm looking at second coming possibly being the second coming to the world, possibly being in about 10 years. I don't think it's any farther away than that. But again, I don't really like timelines because, and I know I've told this a gazillion times, the Lord told us to watch for the signs. He didn't tell us to calculate them. He told us to look and see and notice. Notice when the figs take fruit. Notice when the leaves turn brown. Notice when the spring comes out. Notice these things. Take notice. And in that, you're going to find hope, because that hope is in Christ, because you know Christ is coming and his coming is it. However, we don't know exactly how long that's going to be.
And as you know, I'm not a huge fan of timelines either. I do find some of them intriguing, and there's probably some good information, but I'm not going to attempt to do it myself. I don't think really there's even so much a need to if you're just watching for the signs, just like you said. It's pretty clear things are. So I mean, let me ask you this, okay? So are you a lifelong member of the church?
No.
When did you, at like what age did you convert?
I was 23 when I was baptized.
Okay. So from that time until now, do you ever remember a time like this, as far as like the type of prophet that we have right now, Russell M. Nelson, or the manner in which our general authorities are talking and changes in the church? Like, what's your perspective of the church from the time that you became a member until now? And can you relate that to, like, you believing that the second coming is close? Like, have you noticed like a difference in a hastening and stuff like that?
Right. Well, President Kimball was the prophet, was a prophet when I joined the church. As mild and meek as he was a powerhouse. And he opened doors such as the blacks getting the priesthood. He opened doors that had not happened before, and people apostatized at that time. And then President Benson. I have a real soft spot in my heart for President Benson. And the reason being is because he didn't pull any punches with anybody. He stood for what he believed in, what it was. And had a personal interaction with him once. And it went back and forth. And I won't go into what it was, but he's a very special man, and I've always noticed his. And of course, there was Richard McConaughey around that time too, and he was pretty popular, and that's where I learned about the Mormon doctrine. And people say that he had to change his mind and he had to recount this and all this kind of stuff. No, he didn't. My then in-laws were very privy to what he had to say. And he used to say that he would take it off the market before he would change anything that he said in it. And so he wouldn't change it, so he took it off the market. And then there was tons of copies that sold back market because everybody wanted to know what it was all about. And I don't remember why. He did not ever say that he was wrong. He just removed that bit of information he had put in originally. But he never said, I was wrong, I'm sorry. And I think that's part of the reason the church hierarchy, and I'm not talking about the 12, I'm not talking about the first presidency, I'm talking about the hierarchy, the ones that make
Oh, oops. Are you still there? Hello? Uh-oh. I think I'm losing you. It's saying here bandwidth is low. Can you still hear me? Oh, shoot. Let me give it another minute here.
Okay.
Okay, wait, I think I got you back.
Okay.
All right, can you repeat the last thing that you were saying?
Oh, I was just talking about when President Benson was on and Bruce R. McConaughey had taken out his the issue that people had with his book, Mormon Doctrine. And he never recounted what he said. He just took it out because it caused too much controversy.
Yeah.
And he was a good man, and I learned that people asked him how he knew so much about the scriptures, and he very humbly, he said, well, I study about an hour a day in the Old Testament, and then I study about an hour a day in the New Testament, and then I study about an hour a day in the Book of Mormon, and then I study about an hour a day in the Doctrine and Covenants. And it's like he spent 4 hours a day studying the scriptures. You can't walk away from that and not know. You know, you've got to glean. Just if you spent 4 hours just reading the scriptures, you glean something out of it.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Yeah. So he was very controversial. That's all I can say, is he was very controversial, but I believe much of what he had to say. Again, I don't put my faith in the arm of the flesh. And when people asked him about the priesthood, what did he say? He didn't say, I balked at it. He didn't say, I fought it. He said, I guess I was wrong. Because he didn't think the blacks would get the priesthood until the millennium.
Yeah.
And I guess I was wrong. And it's like, that's how humble he was. So I don't put I don't put a lot of stock into people trying to bash anybody, to tell you the truth. One of the things that really disturbed me was, this was a couple of years ago, I had heard that this very vocal LDS feminist, I don't know who she was, I don't know her name, all I know is that it got written up in the newspaper that she thought the best thing that could happen to the church was if President Nelson and President Oaks were killed in a car crash.
Oh, yeah, I thought I heard something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't believe somebody would say something like that. I mean, even somebody evil. I mean, I might ask Heavenly Father to take him out of the situation so that he doesn't have influence anymore. But I don't think I would ever ask for anybody to die.
That's pretty bad. Yeah.
Yeah, and so anyway, I'm not for bashing people. I'm not for bashing whether they agree with me or not. I'm just not. I'm not a political person. I have a sister who's very political. I have 4 sisters, so this is just one who's very political, and she just can't wait to chomp on the bit to get things going and to get the controversy going. I think I posted, it might have been on one of yours, it might have been on Brother Guerrero's, but I think people are addicted within the church and out of the church. People are addicted to controversy and sensationalism.
Yeah.
And that's why they don't like general conferences, because it's not sensational enough. They're not announcing Christ is here. They're not singing with the choirs of angels. They're just being humble followers of Christ, relaying the message that Christ wants us to hear right now. And people don't want that. They want the controversy. They want the political edge. They want to be able to say, I'm right and you're wrong. And that's not Zion.
No.
That's not Zion.
No, it's not. It definitely isn't. I think you're right there. The message right now from the general authorities is to put that stuff away. Stop. That's this stuff. Like, things matter, but not that much. Like, it's more important to be the Lord's people and to love each other and avoid contention. And if you're going to try and change somebody's mind, you need to do it with meekness, and they have to be open to it in the first place. Like, you can't try and ram something down somebody else's throat. But back to like the church and how it's progressed. Like, let me tell you this, from my point of view, I feel like things really started picking up when Gordon B. Hinckley became president. And I don't know if it's just because I was like, wow, we're about to enter literally a new millennium, because he was the prophet in the year 2000. And he was doing a lot of things. He was building a lot of temples. He did the whole, small temples idea. And then I feel like things kind of quieted down a little bit with President Monson, but now things are like escalating again with President Nelson. Like, he is doing a lot of stuff. Like, what's your perspective on that?
I agree. I think there's more to the millennium, when Gordon B. Hinckley was prophet. There's more to that than just the fact that it was the change of the century. Gordon B. Hinckley actually brought the church out of obscurity. He was a media man to start with, and he knew how to put the church in the best light possible and put it out there. He published that book, Standing for Something, and it was published not by an LDS entity, and it hit the bestseller list. And he's the one that really brought it out of obscurity. And President Monson kind of carried that torch. He wasn't responsible for starting it, but he was a media man too. Did you know that President Monson could look through copy? He could look through a book, he'd thumb through it. this thumb through it, and he could see every error in it. And he pointed out, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. He just had that good of an eye. I met President Monson twice. And he is one that would never forget you. He might not remember your name, but he knew you. But it's like when I met him the second time, he reached out for my hand. He said, I remember you. And
Wow.
yeah, he remembered everybody he ever met. He had a really good eye, a really good retentive memory. But he pretty much carried on what President Hinckley began in the obscurity, lack of obscurity in the church. When President Nelson became prophet, there was a definite change. There was a definite, the word keeps coming up, hinge point, hinge
Yeah.
point, hinge point. There were certain hinge points that happened. The temple in Rome, the hallelujah shout in General Conference. There were so many things that over the centuries have been done, but not in such compact time. You know, it's just like one right after another, instead of one happening and then 10 years down the road, this happens, and then 5 years down the road, this happens. This is all within months of each other. Everything's piling up on top of each other. And like you said, the work is hastening. And right after or right around the time that I can't remember his name, but he was called, and I think it's Young Men's president, general president. And he was talking about an interview that he had with the prophet, and the prophet literally told him that Christ's coming is imminent.
I think I know what you're talking about. I think I remember that. Yeah.
And if you look up the word imminent doesn't mean 10 years down the road.
Right.
When a woman goes into labor, imminent doesn't mean another 9 months.
Yeah.
You know what
it's just like, it's so, you know, because when I think about the second coming, I think about what are things actually going to look like in the days, like what is that year going to look like? Like, is it going to be really obvious? Is it going to be, well, for those that are watching and those that have eyes to see and ears to hear, it probably will be. And I think that we're kind of in that stage now. You know, I can't say that it's going to happen by the end of the year. I can't say it's going to happen in 2022, but I've never seen so many people talking about it as I do now. And not just like in our church. Like, it's pretty clear to me that Christians of other faiths, there's a lot going on there too. There's so many channels, there's so many people that are like just seeing everything that's happening, you know. So I just want to know, like, I just want to see how it's all going to unfold, you know, like with adam-ondi-ahman. Are we going to like be transported there, you know, like, you know, in the blink of an eye? Is it going to be by Zoom? Is it going to be like, is it going to be a thing where you go to your stake center and it's like, and you watch it the way that we did the temple dedications for the Palmyra temple? Like, I'm really curious to know like what things are actually going to like look like. All I can tell though is that something is definitely happening. You definitely get that sense from this prophet that we have right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. I have my own, and every time I've tried to envision this, I've been wrong. So take that for what it is. But I have always envisioned us going to a stake center and having something like via Zoom. I've imagined this even before I knew Zoom existed. So I've always had this sense of we would be invited. There will be people who only certain people. And these are people, again, the righteous people. Those of us who aren't trying to live right or aren't trying to, you know, don't have a temple recommend or not And I'm not saying there may be people there that don't have temple recommends, but they're working toward it, because it's not where you are right now, it's what you're working toward. And I think is what's going to determine our righteousness.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say that only if temple recommend holders are going to go, because I don't know that. I don't know that only members of the church are going to be there. All I know is I believe, again, my own belief, I believe that it's the righteous people that will be there and nobody else.
Yeah.
And that's how it's going to be separated, is that we are going to be either called to the church for a special meeting, and things like that have happened before, because I know of a couple of people who, this was very early on my right after my conversion. There were several people who were invited to a meeting that, and so I know these things happen, and they were only special people for a specific purpose that they were invited to these meetings. So I know that this happened in the past, and maybe that's the reason I have this imagination that it's going to be people are called to the state center and then there will be a presentation there. I don't know. I don't know if that's what I imagine.
It would make sense to me, because like I said before in the channel, I think that the Lord tends to do things in very practical ways and not so much in what you might call magical or miraculous ways. So I could definitely see it happening like that. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So do you get the sense that, do you feel like President Nelson will be the one that is the prophet of Adam-ondi-ahman when that happens? The reason why I asked that is because there's been two specific times that I've noticed. Once was during the 2018 Worldwide Youth Devotional, and the other time was in an interview that he did for the Atlantic, where he basically said, he said that his interview or his judgment day is imminent. And in the 2018 Worldwide Youth Devotional, he talked about how he's going to have to make a report to Joseph Smith, Brigham Young, etc. It sounded like adam-ondi-ahman, but of course he could be talking about just he expects to die within the next few years. But what is your take? Do you feel like he could be the prophet of adam-ondi-ahman when that happens?
I do. I think that he is going to be the one there. However, I think at that time, perhaps he'll be translated, perhaps he will die. I don't know. My own personal opinion, and it's funny because my best friend has told me this ever since I've been a member of the church back 40 some odd years ago. She always believed, and this was before President Oaks was even called. She always second. And I kind of think the same thing. And I think I commented yesterday about that as well, about how I think he's going to be the one that goes to DC and says, hey, look, we stand for the Constitution. We don't stand for the garbage that y'all are pulling off. And if you don't choose to make the right choices, we are going to do our own thing. And I think perhaps he's going to be the one that actually oversees the city of Zion itself when it is built. I've been wrong a gazillion times, so I could be wrong this time, but I really believe that adam-ondi-ahman, that President Nelson will be the prophet then, based on what you said, even, about how he's going to have to answer. He's going to have to answer to Joseph Smith. He said that about closing the temples. He says, I'm going to have to answer to all these people that fought so hard to have these temples open. And that really bothered him. And he knows. So I really think that, I think he's going to be the prophet at adam-ondi-ahman. I don't think he's going to be the prophet after that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm curious to see if he's going to make it to his next birthday, because like I've said on the channel before, if he does, he's going to hold the record for being the oldest prophet or apostle during this dispensation, which I think that by itself is almost like a sign of the times. And he looks like he's doing so good for his age. I feel like I've heard a lot of people say that he just looks so good for how old he is.
People said that about President Hinckley as well. President
Yeah.
Hinckley literally worked himself to the point that he didn't show up for work, and people had to go to his house to find out what was wrong. And 3 days later, he died.
Wow.
Always there. He was always there. And then 3 days later, just one day he didn't show up, and then 3 days later he died. It was that quick.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to be the same with President Nelson.
Yeah. Yeah. And President Hinckley, if I remember right, he made it to the number 2 spot, just behind, I think it was David B. Haight, that currently holds that record of the oldest living apostle / prophet. Do you have any thoughts about David A. Bednar? Some people think that, he is kind of a special apostle. Do you have any thoughts like that?
I think he's a special apostle in that he is one of those scriptorians. He is much like Bruce R. McConkie in that respect. He knows a lot, and he talks deeply. His talks are not superficial. His talks are very deep in doctrine. And every apostle has their own, and they're all special. But I think, and I don't know what role that's going to play. All I know is that he is really, like, what did he say about food storage? It was like, people think that we haven't said anything for 20 years, so it must be past. We don't need it anymore. But no, the principles of the church don't change. The doctrines of the church don't change. Just because you don't hear about it doesn't mean it doesn't exist anymore. And he talks about things people don't want to hear. He talks about deep things that people, and then you get people that complain. This gets me. You get people that complain because it's too superficial. General conference is too superficial. They're just, patting people on the back and sending them on their way kind of thing. And then there's other people that complain that they want deep doctrine. They're tired of this superficial stuff. And they it's like, let's get to the meat of things. And they don't understand that these people who speak in general conference have to speak not only to the intellectuals, not only to the deep thinkers, they have to speak to the new converts. They have to speak to all of these people that know nothing about food storage. They know nothing about any of the general authorities who lived in the past. They know nothing about any of these teachings, and and this is a world church. This isn't an American church. They have to reach these people that know nothing about American culture. And that's a hard task. That's a really hard task to fill.
Yeah.
And so when we look at our general conference and when we get our notices, like I get this every it's the general conference edition, journal edition. We get these all the time. Every general conference we get them. And when we get them, what do? Do we park them away and set them aside like we do our Leonas? Or do we study them? Do we go into it? Do we watch the conference again? And we have that capability now. 40 years ago, most people didn't even get to go to conference, and you didn't hear about it till you got your magazine.
Yeah.
and now everything's at the touch of a button. Are we taking advantage of that? Are we noticing the innuendos in the talks? Are we noticing the David Bednars that are speaking to us from the heart and saying, Heavenly Father needs you to know this.
Yeah.
He needs you to know how important it is to pay tithing. He needs you to know how important it is to have your food storage. He needs you to know how important it is to hear the Spirit and to study your scriptures.
Mm-hmm. And with the technology, like you said, now that we're like living in the information age, I'm kind of blown away whenever I go on the church website, whether I'm reading scriptures or whether I'm reading a Liahona article, just how easy it is now to look at the footnotes. Because before you could do it, but it would take a lot more effort. But now you just go there and it just like pops right up on the, you don't even leave the article that you're reading. It just comes, off the side and you'll see the footnote and read it. And so I think that's something that we really need to take advantage of. And it's something that I try to incorporate a lot in my videos as I'm doing like this study and sharing with everybody what I'm studying. Because just for example, one of these most recent talks that I went over by President Nelson as part of the Sister Wendy Nelson Challenge, he made a reference to this talk by Wilford Woodruff. And the entirety of the talk didn't really have a whole lot to do with what he was actually referencing. It felt like he referenced that talk for people that are looking for more of the meat to like look at that and be like, whoa, because Wilford Woodruff was talking all about the law of adoption, which is something I didn't really know about before. So like that's something that President Nelson woke me up to by putting that footnote in there, and it that talk brings up a lot of questions and a lot of things to think about when it comes to being sealed and what's going to happen after this life. What are family structures going to look like? Because there definitely is going to be some kind of shakeup. Not everybody's going to make it to the celestial kingdom, and you still may have kind of a claim in a sense to people that you're sealed to, even if they don't make it to the celestial kingdom. And I don't know exactly what that means if you're still just kind of like over them in some way. But I think our families are going to be looking a lot different, whether it's a spouse or whether it's children or whether it's a parent. Yeah, and that's something that we're going to be facing pretty soon here, I think, at least as far as people that are living a telestial law. They're not going to be coming forward with this into the millennium, and there's going to be a shakeup. You know what I mean?
I do, and I think first of all, we are taught that if we are a righteous couple and we have been sealed and our family's been sealed to us, that we will literally have the power to pull our children out of hell. That doesn't mean that they are going to make it to the highest degree of the celestial glory, but at least they won't be in the terrestrial world or the telestial world. So in that respect, yes, I think things are going to be, we will have that power, but the family unit itself, I think, will look different. And I think I've told you, both my kids were killed by drunk drivers. One was killed in 1991, June, and the other one was killed in June of 1995. And my older son was a very special young man. He was very special. He got his patriarchal blessing when he was 12, and without even a question. The bishop didn't even ask him a question. He just signed the paper. He knew he was ready. 5 weeks after he died, we were able to get his temple work done. And that's almost unheard of. But they knew that he was preparing to go on a mission when he died. And so this was just his thing, to go on a mission. That was his farewell. The point I wanted to make about that is when we learned we could have them sealed to us because they were my children from another marriage. When we learned we could have them sealed to us, I learned a lesson that had nothing to do with me. It had nothing to do with my chain of command or whatever else. It had to do with my children's exaltation. It had to do with them being able to be in the highest degree of glory. That sealing power is about exaltation. It's not about my younger son. Before he died, he told me, he says, "Mom, I'm going to live with you till the day I die." And I looked at him and I said, "I hope not." And he looked, he says, "Well, I'll live next door to you." And I said, "Okay, that works." See, that's it. Is people have this idea that I don't think that's the way it's going to be. I think it's going to be much like what we are told. We are going to have the same socialities that we have here in this life. It's going to be glorified. And so no, I'm not going to be surrounded with kids and grandkids and great grandkids and so on and so forth. And the one mansion keeps getting bigger and we keep adding on rooms and so on. No, it's not going to be like that. And that sealing power had to do with my children, not me. I just was able to have, because of that sealing power, I was able to provide that for them.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're at the 1 hour mark. So I think we'll wrap it up there. I appreciate you coming on and sharing everything that you had to say. We can have you on another time if you'd like. And then again, for everyone watching, if you want to do the same thing again, just email me, my.christian.homestead@gmail.com, and we'll set up a time. I like doing interviews. I like talking to other people and seeing what they have to share. So I really appreciate everything that you shared, Betty, and for all the comments that you leave on my videos. It helps the channel. It helps bring more information and more perspective to the channel. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
All right. We'll talk to you next time.
Okay.
All right.